Yes.
You essentially said what CPSAP earlier today said in a press conference held at 11:30.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Essentially, they're concerned as well that the country is heading down a slippery slope, and the 3,000 jobs that was outlined in the ministerial statement isn't going to quite cut it. It could be upward. They've also expressed concern. We've heard that there have been proposals, or there are going to be proposals being put forward for salary cuts. 3% was one figure, 5% was the next, but it might need to be more.
Ryan, I want to speak to you clearly again. Barbados has a $1 billion deficit. If we were to add in the arrears, it is 1.8 billion that we are facing in terms of bills that we have to pay right now. No amount of saving 140 million can solve that problem. That is like giving a person a band-aid who has cancer. Let us talk to the people of this country. Let us be honest. When you have a problem in your family, Maria, you call everybody together and you tell them this is what we're facing. And you ask people now to pull together. No figure arbitrarily chosen by any government, by any union, by the Labour Party, by any private sector person is going to solve the problem. We have to go through an orderly process that allows us to know how we can restructure and how we can use multiple policies to face this crisis. And I say to you that there is no single approach that pulls out a figure out of a hat for people to go home or wage cut that's going to get us safely. All we're going to do is cause carnage among the people who get sent home, and then it will spill over into the private sector because of the reduction of purchasing power, and you're deeper in the hole because the only way we can get out of this crisis ultimately is by growing it. Now, I'm glad that Setu Saab recognizes it. And the truth is that I believe that the unions need independent economic advice in order to understand the scale of the issue. But even if they didn't have it, Moody's makes it clear. The IMF press release makes it clear. Standard & Poor's, Bloomberg's article, Forbes' article. They're all saying what the Barbados Labour Party has been saying now for years. And the only people stopping us now from moving forward in the right direction is an incompetent Minister of Finance in whom we have no confidence, a Prime Minister who remains as mum as a silent mummy, and I don't mean mother, I mean the ones wrapped up with the band, in the tombs, with all the cloth, and who refuse to take us and to take charge. And if he can't do it, I'm saying let us form a national group. This is the worst crisis we have faced since independence without any form of comparison.
Is protest march in the cards?
And I am not into the politics of symbols like that. I want this country first for us to understand the scale of the problem. I am not threatening marches. I am not threatening actions. I have said only one thing, that I will address the country if the government does not do so by early January, to give the people of Barbados the true scale of what we face. I am conscious that people get intimidated by numbers, and therefore, in addition to the numbers, we will give the adequate imagery and comparisons to show people truly where we are. Truly, people understand when crisis hits and people may not survive. That is where we are. And that is why I am not prepared to say that everything is going to be hunky-dory or there will not be sacrifice. But sacrifice must mean something. I must stand for something. I must take you safely home.
Outlined what I'm calling a 5-point plan, where you're calling for restoration of confidence in the Barbadian economy and so on.
It's really 4 points, yeah.
4 points, sorry. We're telling Barbadians that they must decide where they want to go and what must happen for them to get to that point. You call on the central bank to be an independent body. Stop the partisan approach.
And form the eminent persons group.
Have the eminent persons, call for the eminent persons group to look at the situation, devise solutions and move forward. There are some sections of society that might want to suggest that in doing so, we look at possibly, I will call it a unity government as such, to go through these muddled waters, because it seems as though one side says they know what they're doing, but they don't. The other side says we know what we're doing, but they don't have the opportunities to do it. Is it that we need to, instead of just everyone throwing out suggestions, come together and form what I will call the unity government, coalition government as such?
Why do you think people are calling for that, Ryan? Because they have reached a point where they have no confidence in the current administration. Because they believe that the current administration has betrayed them by seeking to get elected on a platform of no layoffs and no sell-offs. And far from that being not their platform, it is their immediate course of action in the crudest, most crass possible way. That is where Barbados finds itself at 2013 after 47 years of independence. This is not what we educated people to assume the reins of government for as an independent country. I want to say that you cannot even begin to talk about a unity government if you can't even get an eminent persons group that is reflective of the whole country and that will act in the best interest of the country forward. The government has to be able to act in a manner that tells us that they are putting the country first. Yesterday's example in the House of Assembly, I was not at the press conference with Kerry, but I am telling you that the behavior of the speaker is putting at risk our ability to speak on behalf of thousands of Barbadians. You cannot rule on a matter if a person does not complete a sentence. You cannot even treat a 2-year-old child in that manner. You have to listen to people. Even if you are biased and want to say out of order, that's your right. But you have to listen to people and let them finish the sentence. Now, if that is where we have been reduced to in this country, how are we then positioning ourselves to face the greatest crisis since independence? An uncontrollable fiscal deficit, a free fall in foreign reserves, and an economy that is becoming more and more unviable. And if we start having the social consequences falling from those three, then we're talking about a decade to a generation to recover, as we learned from Guyana and Jamaica. Let us stop it before it reaches there. We do not have the land size, the buffer, none of those things that Jamaica and Guyana have. We are on a small rock. And when we sneeze in St. Lucie, we catch pneumonia in St. Philip.
I want to go back to the ministerial statement. January 15th.
Is it the ministerial statement or is it proposals?
I want to go back to what was read in Parliament last.
As a ministerial statement. And being mischievous.
We have a set of deadlines. Like January 15th, March 15th. We heard yesterday the House is on recess until January 14th. We're hearing from the unions and CTUSAB that they're meeting on Monday. Well, the NUPW is meeting with the Ministry of Civil Service to put its proposals on the table. CTUSAB is meeting next week as well. It is concerning because time frames. We're seeing that you have lengthy periods of time elapsing between when we're having these meetings, and yet you have these persons who are a bit concerned. Barbadians wanting to know, is it me that's going on?
That's the point.
What, and putting aside what you said here, if you had the opportunity to sit down, I don't want to use the adage that was used for efficient agreement, but over a bowl of council, over with the Prime Minister, as to getting something happening, because for many persons it appears nothing is happening. In terms of getting these 3,000, this issue of 3,000 workers that will be sent home based on what we're hearing, what would you tell Prime Minister?
Ryan, I just said it. Stop engaging in a futile debate. I've said we need to establish an eminent persons group to address the scale of the problem. You cannot send home 3,000 people who might be the wrong 3,000, might be 2,000 too many, might be 1,500 too many. We don't know. This is an arithmetical necessity that will not put us in any condition to recover. The first thing we need to do is to acknowledge the scale of the problem and bring the best people together to help guide the country. And that is what this meeting this morning has been about. The mere fact that we are 3 days before Christmas, and 23 years I've never had a press conference 3 days before Christmas. And if we were thinking that we were alone, Setu Sab has never had one 3 days before Christmas. So the two of us can't be wrong about trying to give priority to this Saturday before Christmas. Believe you me. Single message, tell the Prime Minister to acknowledge the scale of the problem, communicate with the country on it, recognize his Minister of Finance has no confidence, and establish an eminent persons group which we are prepared to be part of, which Labour should be represented on, which the private sector should be represented on, and they must have no more than 4 weeks from the 6th of January. And he does not need 2 weeks to form that group.
Why did the opposition not fall in with the pay cut that the ministers did?
But have we not yet? You know, the opposition parliamentary party only met yesterday. And in fact, the opposition parliamentary party is prepared to take a pay cut on condition that the government recognizes the scale of the problem and stops the partisan spend. Our pay cut for 14 members is minuscule in comparison to the $4.5 million that is being spent in partisan spend for catering for summer camps. The government must stop that. It must stop the $5 million in constituency councils and the David Thompson football tournament. And if we can get those things, then the opposition, like everybody else, is going to bear its share of the burden. But do not be distracted by red herring. And it's not even good red herring.
How do you react to the situation? I'm not sure if you're aware of it, and I'm trying to understand it. But in Nevis, which is also under IMF, they're looking to give their civil servants a pay raise.
St. Kitts has announced a 10% pay increase. They went into an IMF program. They've come out more or less much healthier. The sacrifices made by the Kittitians led to a meaningful improvement, such obviously that the Prime Minister clearly feels that he can afford a 10% pay increase for them. Now, I'm saying to you that when you ask these 3,000 people to go home, what's going to happen when we're going to meet back in this room in 3 months' time to hear that the reserves fall again and to hear that government owe away more money and can't find anybody to finance it, and that the central bank is still printing money. And what does Moody's say here? In clear terms, Moody's could downgrade the rating further if international reserves continue to decline and or the government continues to rely heavy on short-term debt and central bank financing. Do you know that this government, the central bank, has provided 50% of the short-term financing to the government this year since April through printing of money? Unheard of. That's why the reserves are under so much pressure. Do you know that nobody will lend the Barbados government any medium or long-term money? Only short-term money, only 180-day money, 90-day money. Why? Because they don't trust that the government is in a position to pay them back in 3 years or 5 years. Do you know that we went to Parliament and were told that Credit Suisse would lend us money for 5 years on onerous terms? And it turns out this week that we're finding out that the term is now going to be 3 years. And that this year, we're going to have to find the next financial year $26 million probably for interest. And then by 15 months' time, 2015, 2016, the country has to look to pay back 2 installments of amortization, which is 200 million Barbados dollars, plus interest of 26 again, 226 million. In the same year, that Sandyford's excessive Barclays loan from 1991 stands to be repaid of 93 million. So if we think 2014 is going to be bad, 2015, because of what this government is committing us to put off decision making on the reserves, will become now doomsday. And then again in 2016, another 126 million. So the government is cutting off our hand while trying to save the arm. It is getting the Credit Suisse money to prop up the reserves, but committing us now to more debt to the point where you have no oxygen. I don't know how else to put it. And Kerry, if you can put it better, or Dale, please. Because we are at that stage now. And I want to say something too. You are getting the benefit of this full press conference. And Maria and members of the print media and VOB and whatever, when this is reduced to 2 or 3 column inches, we have not served the country well, because the country is not understanding the logic of what we're saying. You know, we live in a country where we still can't get access to CBC readily. We may get a minute here and a minute there. But the very time when the country needs to hear whether people will have jobs next month, whether they can pay mortgage or rent, they're being denied the information to guarantee their future. No, let us not regret this moment 6 months from now. And you notice I didn't say 12 months. 6 months from now.
What is the next step with the petition signatures from Stop Our Slide?
I've already said that almost 20,000 people have signed. We are continuing to call. There are people who now feel more than ever they would like us to reopen it. But the truth is that we are now at the next stage. Barbados has gone beyond that. The Prime Minister needs to act. He needs to get rid of the Minister for Confidence to come back. And he also needs to set up this eminent persons group. I truly believe that the Prime Minister is fully out of his depth. That is why he cannot address the country on financial and economic matters. That is why he told the country in October, perpetrating again the false belief by public servants that they would be safe. He told the country they found the savings in October. Many of you went and heard him say so. Now to hear that a minister from his cabinet says send home 3,000 people. This is the same cabinet. This is the same country. All of us are adults. All of us are thinking. But we are allowing people to make mock sport at us. Make a puppy show of this country. A country that was regarded as punching above its weight is now being called Cyprus West. Everybody's asking what happened to Barbados. And the only people who seem not to realize it are the title holders who continue to block the way of progress by remaining quiet and by being frightened to stand up and talk or ask for the information if they don't have it.
What about I saw the front page of the Saturday Sun that there's a plan to also introduce a motion of no confidence against the Speaker.
Well, I addressed that earlier, a censure motion, but that is a separate matter. That is a tangential matter. And I said that we have to be able to represent the interests of Barbadians by speaking in the entity to which we are elected. We are legislators. And if we cannot speak without fear or without favor in that body, if we cannot be given a full chance to finish sentences, then we cannot represent the interests of thousands of Barbadians who more than at any other time need their parliamentarians to represent their interests. And that is why I say that I'm not only looking at the labour movement and the private sector to stand up, you know. Any one of the 15 government MPs, I pray hard this Christmas, will get a conscience and know that they too have to live in this country, and their children and their children's children. Any more? Yeah, Ricky?
Yeah, just 2 questions. One of them, you know, is they should touch on the football, the dancing competition. I don't know if you saw in print media where they said that government is now seeking to the private sector to try to get sponsorship to sponsor that next year. Any response to that?
2 points. They would have to be seeking 100% sponsorship, because there should be no money from the taxpayers to support football while people going home or being asked to make sacrifices in this country. 2, they want my personal experience. I told you already that our sponsorship was down because the private sector are losing money at a rapid rate. So I could tell them that they're going to have a hard time raising sponsorship.
Right. The second one, you mentioned about the eminent persons group. Only on Thursday, we had Dr. Don Marshall turning up at the meeting saying he was showing solidarity to the workers, and he actually gave some points where he felt that things could have worked. In light of something like that happening, do you think that government would really take your recommendation or the opposition's recommendation about establishing a committee like that?
Are you trying to tell me that since Dr. Don Marshall is a chairman accountable to Minister David Eswick, and is therefore, and he's had what, 3 or 4 chairmanships since 2008, that if they're not listening to their own, they're not going to listen to me? Is that what you're asking me? Listen, at Christmas, we believe in a spirit of goodwill and a spirit of peace. In a sense, you know, today's statements will come to be regarded as the Barbados Labour Party's last chance to be able to play a role at a national level in saying to this government, look, I've made so many offers to the point where some of my members have pilloried me. That's no secret. And this government has scoffed at everyone. And then we'll get up and make mock sport on the floor of the house and tell Kerry and Dale and the others, y'all don't offer a suggestion. We offer suggestions on energy pricing and reducing electricity to the point where y'all say that, oh Lord, that again. And I want to say to the nation, it is not a subsidy. You cannot have a subsidy when a company is getting a rate of return. We have offered suggestions on other things. I'm not talking about sectoral suggestions now. I'm talking about a national effort to stabilize. This is akin to countries facing war. When a war happens, it decimates the earning of populations. It affects populations and fractures households. It causes lives to be lost. Barbados is at a stage now where this crisis is going to decimate businesses. It is going to fracture households. It is causing stress in people that are causing them to end up in the hospital. That's where we are, and we're going to see more and more of it. This is the greatest and gravest threat to our national stability and security as a nation. It requires the most serious and comprehensive response. You cannot send a boy to do a man's job. That is what has been done with Chris Sinclair. He is a 5-foot man in 7-foot water. And the Prime Minister is now proving that which is unbelievable to our own eyes, that he is 3 feet in 7-foot water because he knows less about the economy than the Minister. And I don't mean to be invidious, but this country must now claim its own destiny and must not be held hostage to an incompetent government that will not act. We are saying to the government, we are prepared to help you. We are saying to the government, call on others across labor and the private sector to help you. But we are saying that we will not stand in abeyance and see you mislead people. And come January, we are going to give the country the full facts, because we believe that the 30 of us in the Parliament stand only for a temporary period in trust on behalf of the people, and that ultimately it is not the decision of us 30, especially where it was founded on a platform of betrayal. It is the decision of the hundreds of thousands, 270,000 Barbadians to decide, 280,000 Barbadians to decide where we are going, just as it would be the decision of a family together to decide how to stabilize. I believe that I've spoken more than enough today, and I want still to tell you, gather up your strength. Enjoy and relax over the immediate days of Christmas, Boxing Day, Christmas Eve, but know that all of us, you in the media, us in Parliament, the ordinary Barbadian, that we have to prepare for the challenge of our lives come the beginning of 2014. I signaled that a week ago, that it is not business as usual. 2014 will make or break the Barbados that we know and love. Thank you.